Hi, I'm Glyn. You can check out more of what I do over on my website, which is glyndewis.com. I'm over on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. But for this week's video, what I want to do is just take you through the workflow and the retouch that went into this recent picture of fitness and wellness coach Benson James, who's based in the UK. I'll take you through from the raw out of camera file that you can see on screen now to the final print ready picture. Now there's a few little steps in there, there's a few little tips and tricks along the way, so let's get started. Okay, so before we get into the retouching, I've got something here which I've created using the Lights app. And it's just a very quick lighting diagram to give you an idea of how the actual picture was set up. Well, it was really simple. It was just a one light setup. We had the Elinchrom Rotolux 175cm Octa and had an ELC 1000, which is one of the new heads from Elinchrom fitted into the back of it. But we've got Benson up here, and we've also got the Octa just here. And you can see that Benson isn't positioned right in front of the light, so that all lights coming onto him just there. What we've actually got is Benson just back from the actual Octa, so we're just getting that nice bit of feathering, which then gives us the soft light on Benson that you can see just here. So it's a very soft light, very pleasing for the kind of look that we're going for. So very simple, one light setup, feathering the light off, and we're actually set there at f4 so that we have the background in the gymnasium going a little bit soft. So that's just a very quick overview of what the lighting was. Let's get on with the retouching. Okay, so I'm going to start the retouch off in Lightroom. Those of you who aren't using Lightroom, you can obviously use Camera Raw because you can do exactly the same things in there because we have the exact same development engine. So I'm going to start off by getting the crop tool. So we'll get the crop tool. I'm going to improve the composition here by dragging up the bottom to around about there. Let's bring down the top just a touch as well, and I'm going to drag in over from the right hand side to around about there. Should be good. Press enter to commit that. The ground area here, this is where it's gone a little bit bright because of the light coming off the Octa and it's spilled onto the floor. So to improve that, or actually darken it down so my eyes aren't drawn to it, I'm just going to get the gradient tool, hold down my shift key, click and drag upwards to apply gradient to that lower area there. Now we can actually see with this red overlay here to see what areas are going to be affected by the gradient. But let's turn that off now. Then we'll get the exposure, and I'm going to bring that down to around about, let's have a look, around about minus 1.9-ish, something like that. So that's darkened that down nice. Then just to finish off this part, I think I'll just might add a little bit of clarity, just a small amount. We might add more later on. And then I might actually increase the shadows just a touch to bring back a little bit more ambient light into the scene so we can see a little bit more of this kind of gym equipment in the distance there. So let's take that up just a touch, maybe around about +4.0, +4.1, something like that. Now I'm going to grab the adjustment brush because the next part I want to affect is the upper part of Benson's arm just here. Just a little bit too light compared to the rest of the actual skin tone on the lower part of the arm. So with that adjustment brush, I'll turn on the show selected mask overlay, and I'm also using the auto mask because now what I want to do is just increase the size of the adjustment brush with my right bracket key and just paint over the top part of the arm just here. Round about there is good. Let's now turn off that show selected mask overlay, and I'm going to bring down the exposure just a little bit, around about to minus 0.3, something like that, and also we'll bring the highlights down as well. So it's a small adjustment, but it just takes away the brightness in that other upper part of the arm. I now want to use the spot removal just to sort of work a little bit on the skin and also remove some of the marks on the floor. So let's just close down the adjustment brush, press my space bar so we can zoom in a little bit there, and let's have a look at how we can work on the skin just quickly. So I'm going to get the spot removal. Now by default when we use this, as I paint over a little blemish like we've got on Benson's forehead just there, you'll notice that Lightroom or Camera Raw will do a great job of removing it completely. But that's a permanent mark, so we do not want to remove that completely unless we get asked to do so. So all I'm going to do is just use the opacity slider here now over on the spot removal just to reduce the actual appearance of that blemish. Not remove it completely, but just remove it just a little bit. Just kind of like lower the strength of it just there. That's great. Over here on Benson's arm as well, we've got a little blemish just here. We can paint over with the spot removal and again use the opacity slider to control how visible we want that to appear. Now for the ground area where we've got some kind of like marks on the floor, we can apply strokes with the spot removal here so we can paint over it. But here we're going to take the opacity way back up to 100. So I'm going to work around areas of the skin, areas of the floor, get rid of some marks, and we'll jump forward rather than let you guys just sit there watching this, and then we'll carry on with the rest of the retouch. Alright, so having jumped forward, you can see by all the pins that appear all over the page now, I've done quite a little bit of that spot removal, but now I think we're pretty much finished doing the raw conversion here in Lightroom or Camera Raw, so let's just close down the spot removal, and now we're going to send our picture over into Photoshop so that we can carry on with a few more finishing touches. We're going to do that as a smart object so that we can always have that flexibility of coming back and making any adjustments to what we've already done. So we're going to go to the Photo menu, choose Edit In, and at the bottom here, open as a smart object in Photoshop. Okay, so now we've got our image open in Photoshop as a smart object, and we can see that from the icon in the bottom right hand corner of the thumbnail here over in the layers panel. The first thing I want to do now in Photoshop is just a little bit of body reshaping, and I want to sort of just affect this area down here on the waistline here of Benson, because the light's catching that, and because of the pose, for me it's kind of making it look as if that area of the body is kind of coming forward. So I want to kind of reduce the appearance of that, and the best way I think we're going to do that is liquify. Thankfully now Liquify can be used as a smart filter so that we can actually make changes to it later on if we need to. So let's just go to the filter menu, choose Liquify, making sure that we always have the advanced mode options kind of selected here, because if we don't have that ticked, we're missing out on quite a lot of things. So always make sure we put a little tick where it says advanced mode, and it opens up so many more options for us. Now I'm just going to get the magnifying glass. Let's just zoom in just a little bit so I can work on this area a little bit closer. I'm then going to get the freeze mask tool. Now I'm going to paint over areas surrounding that part of the body that I want to work on. And the reason for this is so that I don't want them to be affected at all by what we're going to be doing next. So if I paint around this red overlay here, that means these areas are going to be protected. And I'm then going to come over to the toolbar on the left hand side here, and I'm going to choose the fifth one down. This is called the pucker tool. So if we click on that, I've got my settings set at their default over on the right hand side. You can see the size is 400, density is 50, and the rate is at 80. And all I'm going to do now is just start pressing down with the pucker tool on that area of the body, and you can start to see this kind of pinching everything in and reducing the effect of the actual appearance to come forward in the picture. So let's just a few more clicks on that there. You can bring that in just a touch. You can see how it reduces it down, something like that. And then we can click OK. So now when I turn that liquify layer, or liquify adjustment rather, on and off, you can see the difference that makes just there. Now also, because the light's catching this, that is also contributing to making it look as if this area of the body is maybe coming forward just a little bit and it's sticking proud. So what we're going to do is darken that down, and we can use the same layer to darken down just a little bit more of the ground. So I'm going to add a new blank layer, and I'm going to go to the edit menu, choose fill, and I'm going to fill this from the contents drop down menu here with 50% grey, because we're going to do just a little bit of burning. We can't see the actual image at the moment, so I'm now going to change the blend mode from normal to soft light. Now the reason we do that is we're doing our dodging and burning on a separate layer, but we need to have pixels in there that the dodge and burn tools can affect. By adding in that 50% grey and changing the blend mode to soft light or overlay allows us to keep the pixels there but also see the picture below, so now we can work on the areas to brighten or darken them down. So all I'm going to do now then, once I've got that layer set up in place, let's just rename it. I'll call it Dodge and Burn. I'm going to get my Dodge tool over on the right hand side here. In fact, let's go to the Burn tool, and I'll set the exposure to 10%. We can see this now in the options at the top of the screen. Range is set to mid-tones, exposure 10%, and we'll keep a little tick in the top here where it says Protect Tones. And all I'm going to do is just increase the brush. We'll use my right bracket key and just paint over that part of the body just a little bit, just to darken it down a touch so it doesn't seem so obvious. So if I zoom out now, you can see just by doing that, the difference that makes. It darkens it down, the attention isn't bringing down to here. That may be me just being a little bit too sensitive to it, but I think just adding that little bit of darkening does actually improve the picture there. The next thing I'll do, seeing as we've got this dodge and burn layer here, is I'm just going to increase the size of the brush, and I'm going to burn down just a little bit more of this ground area here, because now that we're in Photoshop it still seems a little bit too bright for me. So I'm just going to randomly paint over the bottom area here just to darken down that flooring. Something like that is looking good. Now I want to show you just a couple of really quick techniques that you can use as well on this picture. So let's just zoom in, I'll show you the first one, and that's just a very, very quick way to whiten teeth. So if I just now get my lasso tool, make a very, very loose selection around the teeth area just here, something like that. Then I'm going to get my hue and saturation adjustment layer, and where it says masters, we'll change that from master to yellows, and then simply use the lightness slider just to brighten up the teeth like so. So you can see there's before and after. It's a very, very slight adjustment. Don't need to do much with Benson here, but this is just a very, very quick way that I can show you how you can actually brighten and whiten somebody's teeth. Now, as we're zoomed in, the next thing we need to do is just remove the reddening in the eye over here. So again, I want to use my lasso tool and just make a very, very loose selection around that red area of the eye just there. This time I'm going to use something like the color balance adjustment layer, because in here we can kind of see the color wheel but on individual sliders. So if I want to remove the red on the color wheel, I would add in the color that's opposite to it, and we can see here we have red in the actual color balance, and on the opposite side is cyan. So with that area that's been selected, I'm just going to add in just a little bit of cyan, which by the readout here shows you it's taking the reds down to -10, but it's adding in 10 of cyan. So if we zoom in, hopefully you can kind of see that just there, but if I turn that on and off, you can see how that has reduced the red in that part of the eye. Now, because I made quite a loose selection, you can see that we've actually got that colour being affected on Benson's eyelids. This adjustment layer comes with its own layer mask, so all I need to do now is get a brush with a black foreground colour and just paint over the areas of the eyelids there just to remove that adjustment off there. But you can see how very quickly we can reduce that red in the eye just by using the colour balance and choosing to add the colour that is opposite the one that we want to remove. Now, when we're doing the retouching, it's always the small things that make the difference, and one of those final things that I want to do on this picture here is just to increase the areas that a skin shine is showing, like on Benson's forehead. Now, the way I'm going to do that is by adding a merged or stamped layer to the top of the layer stack, and we do that with Shift Alt Command E or Shift Option Control and E. To get this merged stamp layer at the top of the layer stack. And then what I'm going to do is go to the Channels tab, hold down my Command or Control key, and just click once on the thumbnail of the RGB, and that loads the luminosity within the picture. Let's go back to the Layers panel, and now I'm going to go to Layer, New, and Layer via Copy. And that's going to put that selection, that active selection, up onto its own layer. And you can see now, if I turn off everything, you can see that where those areas that were selected, they're now showing up on the actual layer up above. So let's just turn every layer on. I can actually get rid of the merged stamp layer below now, because I only did that so that I could get this luminosity above. Then I'm going to change the blend mode of this from normal to screen. And look what happens with those bright areas. They go even brighter. So we go from normal, change it from normal to screen. So the brighter areas of the picture are being made brighter. I don't want it to affect the whole picture, so I'm just going to hold down my Alt or Option key, add a layer mask, and by holding down the Alt or Option, it automatically gives me a black layer mask. So now I can just come in with a soft-edged brush, 0% hardness on the brush there, with a white foreground colour, and then just paint in the areas that I want to bring back that actual shine on Benson's skin. Something like there, and a little bit on his leg as well. Something like that. So it's a very, very small change there, but like I say, it's the small things that make the big difference. Now, thankfully, just to finish off, because we've worked non-destructively here, where we've actually got all these layers here, we can see what each of those ones are doing as we go down the layers panel. One thing I wanted to do was add a little bit of sharpening to the whole picture. So because at the bottom here, we've got the original raw file that it came out from Lightroom or Camera Raw. If I double click on that, it's going to open the image back up now in Camera Raw. I'm going to go to the Sharpness tab, and I'm going to bring up the sharpening amount to around about 50. And just so that the sharpening is only being applied to Benson, I'm going to hold down my Alt or Option key, click on the masking slider, and start to drag it across to the right-hand side. When we first do this, the whole picture goes white, which means the sharpening is affecting the whole image. But if I drag the slider over to the right-hand side, we then start to introduce black into the image, and that's restricting where the sharpening is being applied. So if I bring it all the way across to around about 70, it's only Benson now that's had some sharpening done to it. And we'll click OK to send that back over into Photoshop. And there we pretty much have our final image, except for the final touch was when I added just a little bit of text in there as well. That's all from me, and I'll see you next time.